In this lecture, we're going to talk about what is data science, why does the definition of data science matter, and most importantly, will being a data scientist make you popular at cocktail parties? So what is data science? Can I just send my friends who've never heard of what a data science is the Wikipedia article on data science? Well, the answer to that question is no, and the reason is there isn't really that strong of a consensus yet on what data science or what a data scientist is. So you're going to send them the Wikipedia article. That's going to be basically too long. Don't read. I've tried to do this. I've sent people links to Wikipedia articles and Forbes articles and HBR articles when they've asked me what a data scientist is, and that was the response I got. It's too long. Don't read. And these are sophisticated people that like reading. And they're still confused because each article gives a somewhat different definition, which makes it seem like that data science is not yet a well-defined field. But for reasons I'll get to in a moment, they're sort of missing the point. So data science is a merger of perhaps 3 or 4 traditional careers. You have your statistician, your econometricist, which use traditional statistical modeling techniques, and I'll throw in there financial analysts, even though they don't necessarily use the traditional statistical modeling. They're considered in that kind of statistics econometrics framework. They will often do financial risk analysis, which is a potentially important sub-area of data science. You've got your database and software technology IT guys, the hardcore big data database engineers, and skills involving artificial intelligence like neural networks and big data, machine learning that can do predictive models that traditional statistics and econometrics and financial analysis cannot. And traditionally, all of these different careers, and there are more than 3 or 4 I've listed here, but these are some of the keywords that people would be looking for, or some of the traditional career paths that, if you have a combination of these, might indicate that someone is a data scientist. Traditionally, these careers developed separately. They were siloed off in different departments. They developed their own vocabulary, and they didn't talk with each other. And this is part of why data science is so valuable, because there are a number of academic studies that show that it's a particularly valuable skill set if you can translate vocabulary from different departments that otherwise wouldn't be able to speak with each other. So you can essentially become a highly technical translator and translate statistical language into database and software IT and engineering language, or translate artificial intelligence talk into something that the statisticians can understand. And I've personally been in that situation where the statisticians could not talk with the software engineers, and it caused huge headaches, and I was basically brought in to translate between the statisticians and the software engineers and figure out who was wrong in this running argument that they had. And very few people at the time could speak both languages and do that translation. But I see data science primarily as a career marketing term. This is not to mean that it's not valuable. In fact, this is precisely why it's valuable. So recruiters still need to know the old terminologies. Someone may be a data scientist but not be aware that they're called a data scientist. Similarly, a hiring manager may not know the new terminology. So if he's asking for someone that's both a statistician and an artificial intelligence guy, chances are he's really asking for a data scientist. Simply because it's a marketing term does not mean it's useless. It's actually a tremendously useful thing. And the reason has to do with what if you're in an elevator with a CEO, recruiter, or hiring manager. Now, the general public does not yet know what a data scientist is, at least in my experience at the time of this video, which is 2017. But most sophisticated CEOs, recruiters, and hiring managers will. So instead of doing a kind of a Jimmy Stewart hee-haw, well, I do statistics and I do database and I do some artificial intelligence, you just say, I'm a data scientist, and the CEO will know what you mean before the elevator ride is over. The general public is not yet familiar with the term, and this is despite the fact that HBR and Forbes articles have claimed it's the hottest career of the 21st century. Unfortunately, it seems that people at cocktail parties don't seem to read those articles. So here are some of the articles that they're not reading. So data scientist, the sexiest job of the 21st century in Harvard Business Review, and a rather large number of Forbes articles, some of which are editorials and some are not, which say things like why data scientist is the best job to pursue in 2016. So if you want to impress potential dates at cocktail parties, be ready to have these articles to hand out at those cocktail parties. Or you can just do what Woody Allen did in The Blacklist and say you're a dentist. Data science component functions. So traditional corporate functions have been replaced by data science, include from the least requested but the highest value add to the most requested, lowest value add, data-driven management consulting. So this is kind of at the top. You have advisory services. This would typically be handled by traditional management consulting types, MBAs, and so on and so forth, except now they have potentially additional data science credentials or data scientists on their team. And then working down, you have predictive modeling, analysis, which is statistical or econometric modeling, so this is financial analysis, statisticians and econometricists. Data-driven automation, now we're moving more into artificial intelligence and software engineering. Automated reporting, again, more software engineering. And then we have the old workhorse, enterprise, transform and load, and data warehousing. And this is one of the most popular things for a company to request. They may not call it data science. They'll still call it enterprise, transform, and load. But it is also the lowest value add, so this will typically be handled by the more junior data scientists. They may have to do some light modeling to fill in missing corporate data, because corporate data is such a mess, as we'll talk about in a future talk. Hiring managers and recruiters and others will still need to know the old terminologies. Many outsourcing marketplaces still use the 1960s NAICS codes that the federal government uses for requisitions. So more than a dozen of these map to data science roles because they didn't have data scientists in the 1960s. And I would only be exaggerating slightly if I said that computer codes like vacuum tube repairman or slide rule geek or mainframe operator existed under that 1960s system and mapped to data science today. One NAICS code that was around back in the 1960s and still exists today, more or less unchanged, is enterprise, transform, and load. The people operating these marketplaces have typically never heard of data science, at least when I talk to them. And I'll get a response such as, we've never actually gotten a request for a data scientist. And then I'll say, well, what about ETL? And they'll go, wow, we sure get tons of those ETL and database operator requests. We can't find these people. If you know of some ETL guys, let us know. But they've never heard of a data scientist. So there are a lot of people still out there that are involved in the recruiting and hiring process that deal with data scientists that have not yet heard of the term data scientist. They may not know of the term, and they may not know to look for the term. So if you're a recruiter or a candidate or a hiring manager, it's important to realize that there are a lot of older terms that map to what today is data science and data scientists. And to be able to search for those terms or to be able to set the NAICS codes properly to find those candidates. And there are also some specialized areas of data scientists, like financial risk analytics, that still prefer the older terminology. But if you see someone who has a resume that has financial risk analytics together with maybe artificial intelligence or software engineering skills, they might actually be a data scientist, and you should recruit them as a data scientist. That's the end of this talk. Thank you so much for listening.